All right, everybody, welcome to this week's software workshop. We're going to give everybody a couple minutes, just probably one more minute here before we go ahead and get going. So just hold tight here for one more minute before we get going. All right, everybody, the attendee list has slowed down a little bit, so we'll go ahead and get started here. Again, welcome to this week's weekly software workshop. My name is Mason Wells. For those of you who have not met before, welcome. Like I said, my name is Mason Wells. I'm the manager of customer success here at eTruckBiz, so I'm really glad to have you here. Our weekly software workshops started about the end of the year last year, and we've seen some really good results with it. So we're going to go ahead and keep going with 2024 here. For those of you who have not been to a workshop so far, these are very informal. We most often our webinars are where you put your information or your questions into the chat box and then we read it and everything like that. But with this one, because it's so informal, we did make it so that you can unmute yourself and ask questions. So feel free to interrupt me and ask your questions as I'm going. I would rather you do that than we get to the end and we forget what our question was. So because it's so informal, please feel free to ask questions and ask questions even if today we're going over a specific part of the software, but if there's another part that has nothing to do with this part of the software, please be sure to ask it. Or if you have questions about any other thing that eTruckBiz does, this is your time to shine. So we'll go ahead and get going. Today's topic is updating your driver roster and using the new export functions in the driver management system. So this is a pretty big, important thing to do, especially right here at the beginning of the year. Your post-peak, you may have had some turnover, you may have had some hires. You may also be thinking about going ahead and keeping some of those people from peak and clearing out your roster a little bit with some of those people that might not have, hit the mark, so to speak, towards the end of the year there. So making sure that they're updated in our system is a really big deal because when they're updated in our system, not only can they clock in and they can complete their safety lessons as long as if we're a safety vendor for you, and clock in and out and see their schedule and things like that. But for you on your side, making sure that they're updated in the BOSS system is a really big deal because all of our reports, all of the analytics on your WSW and your settlement, all of those analytical things that are in there go based off of having your drivers and your trucks in there. So making sure that they're up to date, their name on their WSW is updated in there and good to go is very important. So that's why we decided that this part of the year, we'll go ahead and go over this. So that's what we're going to go over today, the next couple of weeks here, the upcoming topics. We're going to go over setting up your driver's eRoute accessibility. We added the ability for you to determine how your drivers can access eRoute, whether you want it to be restricted, you want it to be open-ended so they can look at any route they want. That we've added accessibility options for you guys. So I want to show you guys how to do that next week. And we've added this year a monthly recap. So at the end of the month, if you missed something throughout the month and you weren't able to attend, you can come to these monthly recaps and we'll recap anything. And if we have any new updates to the software, that's where we'll go ahead and throw those in there as well. So those are kind of like a melting pot of information, if you will. We're going to go over ways to analyze that WSW. Like I said, your WSW in our system is very important to have your drivers updated. So we're going to go over that, and then managing your safety programs, all of the different safety.
Think Mason lost her audio. She looks like she's trying to regain it here.
Sorry about that, guys. Something happened with my phone. It beep beep beeped and took me off. That's something new for me. I never had that happen, Ken. Um, so that is what we are going to go over for the upcoming topics for the next month or so. If you are like I said, if you're curious about whether or not we're going to go over certain things, just reach out to us and let us know, and we'll add it to the list, or I'll let you know when it's going to be coming up. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into the boss system here. So for those of you who are new to the system, or new to eTruckBiz even, here is where you would log in. This is our main system. We do have a couple of other apps that are out there, the P&D driver app, line haul driver app, the Optics app. There are other things that go on your phones and on tablets, but this one in particular is on the computer and is the lifeblood of the eTruckBiz system. We're going to go ahead and log on in here. And this is what's going to pop up. It's going to come up with your main screen. Just so you guys this screen can change at any time. It's a working system. So as we go through and we add new things, you might see something move or change. If there was something on here that you really like to have and it's removed, let us know. We'll put it back. But just want to let you know up front, we're going to make a lot of changes here at the beginning, middle of the year. So just wanted to give you a heads up about that. So if you see something move, it's not you, I promise. But we're going to today go over your drivers. If you can open the menu, and you can also close it. I've been in this so many times that I can click around and I know where pretty much everything is. But if you need to see the menu, you can open that up. We're going to go to employees. And as you can see, you have an employee management system in here. So we made our system, we rebuilt this from the old one we used to have. It used to be, things were kind of, hodgepodge put together in the old system. This one, we made it driver-centric and truck-centric. So anything that pertains to a driver is going to be under these employees. Anything that pertains to a truck is under truck. It's very easy once you get that mindset of, either trucks or drivers. If it pertains to one or the other, that's where it is. Very easy to find stuff in our system. So today we're going to go over how to edit these drivers, how to add one, just some simple things that are in here. If you're going in here to try to edit or adjust things after, say, you got done with peak and you have some drivers that were essentially like part-timers, or you've got some people that went ahead and left, or you added some new people, this is how you would adjust that. So this list of employees does default to all your active employees. You can filter this. You can look at the active, inactive drivers, and you can also look by type. So we've got a lot of people who have P&D or line haul drivers, or might have both. You can do that as well. It defaults to all types. So say I wanted to just look at his P&D drivers, this is going to go down to 40 people, and these are all his P&D guys. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on one, and on the right-hand side, it's going to change the screen, and it's going to show you all the information for that particular driver. You can change their names. So say somebody got married and they want to change their last name, you can do that in here. You can decide whether they're P&D or line haul. This is really a big deal. Some people kind of go past the employee type because it's not one that's required necessarily, but this is kind of a big deal. When you determine whether somebody's P&D or line haul, our safety focus lessons are specific to P&D or line haul. So it's really important, if you've got a line haul driver, that they're not getting safety lessons about delivering packages because they're not delivering packages. So making sure that you set them as P&D or line haul is a big deal. And also some of the reports some of the reports can get messed up if you don't do that. And when they log into the P&D driver app, or they log into the line haul app, it shows them a list of the trucks when they're choosing, say, to clock in, or they're doing inspections. It gives them a list of those trucks, and it gives them the list based on their employee type. So if you've got P&D trucks, and you've got line haul trucks, and say I'm a P&D driver, but you have me set in here as line haul, I'm only going to see line haul trucks. So that is that's become a kind of an important field to adjust and make sure that it is correct. So I just like to make sure to make note of that. You can put in a job title for them. So sometimes you've got like a manager in here or what have you. The badge ID is also a very, very, very big deal to put in here as well. That connects the WSW and the driver. The name on WSW and that badge ID between the settlement and the worksheet are very important. That is how we connect who the driver is to your reports, because on these reports, if you notice, their name on their WSW is typically, now this could be correct, I'm not quite sure, but this could be how they have their name on the WSW. Usually it's last name, first name. So, a lot of people will go in here and just put in their name, and the WSW has it backwards. So you have to make sure that it's put in exactly how the WSW has it so we can connect the two. And then for the settlement, that's how we determine who they are on the settlement, is having that badge ID. And as well as making sure that the Optics app works. So the Optics app, for those of you who are either new or don't know what the Optics app is, it is an app that goes on your tablet or on your phone, and you can see the progress of your routes throughout the day, of your drivers. You can see how much money they're costing you and how much revenue they're bringing in. And it's all connected to the FedEx API. Through that FedEx API, we have to have these badge IDs to assign, to know who the driver is in our system to what's coming through on the API. So if that number is not in there, you're going to have routes in there that are just blank with no driver because we don't know who it is.
Hey, Mason, just a question. I know we've had a back and forth with different discussions about the name, and because I know in our case, we have drivers that have all small letters, capitals, in between, ups and downs. Am I correct that it's very important to match whatever FedEx has in the WSW identically in eTruckBiz, or am I wrong about that?
I'm not sure. I'll have to ask them about the capital letters. I know that when you have the weird ones, or when you have like junior, senior, those prefixes, or like a lot of people, for some reason, I've seen a lot of people that have like middle names in there. I'm not quite sure. Some do, some don't. I don't know if necessarily the capital letters is a big deal, but definitely for sure having the order in which it's showing up on the WSW is a big deal. So my biggest thing that I like to do is I like to pull up the WSW on one side of my screen and this on the other, and I just copy that section, I copy that name, and I paste it in here. And then
Okay.
You know that it's exactly the same.
Okay. Yeah,
then
because
you're not typing it in, and
they don't even sort it correctly. In other words, when people, I think all the primarily new hires are capitals, but we have people that have been around for 10 plus years from other contractors. And we have one guy with all small letters. He ends up, I believe, all the way at the bottom. And then we have people that it just doesn't sort it alphabetically. I mean, it's close, but I don't know if, who they're getting to do this. Somebody clearly hasn't gone to alphabet school. So I just wanted to be sure, because I know I've heard in different discussions that if you don't have it identical in eTruckBiz to the WSW, causes problems. So that's a good idea to cut and paste it, just not even worry about it. Okay.
Oh, just cut and paste, and that way there's no. And when I would be careful though when you're copying and pasting, sometimes, and I'm not quoting it, sometimes there's such a thing called a carriage return at the end. For those of you who don't know what a carriage return is, it's a space where it's empty. And you don't see it. So we've had a lot of people that'll reach out and say, hey, my driver can't get in. And what happens is at the end of their email or at the end of their password, you'll accidentally put a space because you're so used to afterwards hitting the space bar and you don't think about it. Well, in the back end, in our database, that carriage return gets saved. It saves it in there. So you have to be careful. What I do is when I put it in there and then I highlight it again to make sure there's not a little like random blue space right there on either end. So here you see it.
Yeah, that's great advice.
To double check. Yeah, because I've had a lot of people that reach out to me and say, like through our chat box, because there is a little help chat box down here. I've got a lot of people that will reach out and be like, I can't get in. And I'll look for a couple things, but that's usually the first thing I look for, because you're not putting it in. Like, you don't realize that it's there, just a nasty little bug that sits there
Sure.
and waits. And sometimes, like you said, with FedEx, they put those names in. I don't know who they've got typing them in, but
Yeah.
sometimes they'll put them in there too. And when you go to copy them, it copies it over into our system too. So you
Okay.
just got to be careful about carriage returns and little spaces that, to the mind's eye, you can't see.
Yeah. Well, I just want to make sure that our team knows. So thank you so much, Mason.
Absolutely, yeah. And same with the badge IDs. I'm pretty sure you can copy and paste them directly from your settlement statement. They're right there, I believe, at the bottom. You could do the same thing there, copy and paste them in. They're a little bit easier because they're just numbers. As far as I understand it, you can't capitalize a letter. I did take a lot of grammar. I am an English major, so I'm highly positive that you can't. But copying and pasting those into, very easy to do. It's all right there on the screen. So, as little typing as possible is probably for the best.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yep, of course. And there are things in here that tell you they're required, that have the little asterisk, that's the universal language of, hey, this is important, it needs to be put in there. There are other things in here like default CS day and hire day. I would recommend when you're hiring somebody to fill all of this out, because you never know when you might need it. You never know when you might need to know that they have a default CSA or work area. And this is very important for things like the Optics app and the driver app. When they go to pull their e-route or whatever, it just can default to this for them. So that's one less thing that they have to click to get to their work area. And then this stops per 100 hour goal is a very big thing to put in here as well. I know we didn't make it required, but anytime our system shows you what they're doing, it compares it to their goal. So if you know what each driver's goal is, it's really important to put that in there, because we like to compare how they're doing versus what you expect them to get to. And we did also add driver notes. So if you need to put in little notes about particular drivers, you can put those there as well. And then this up here, availability, this has to do with their schedule. So a lot of drivers will come in and you talk with them and they tell you, hey, I can't work on Mondays. And you agreed that that's okay. So you would just take off the Mondays, and maybe they don't work the weekend either. So they're just Tuesday through Friday. You want to make sure that you do adjust that for what you guys have decided. It defaults to all of them being clicked. But if that's important, if you're going to go to use our scheduler, to have that availability already done, so that way when you go to use the schedule, it doesn't, you've already got that done, and you don't have to go in and adjust it again. So just making sure that all that's done. And you can also assign a manager. So our system is used by companies that have as little as 5 drivers, all the way up to 50 plus. So when you end up having that many drivers and you have more than one manager, it is really beneficial to be able to get in here and assign a manager to your person. Because when your managers get into the boss system, they can go in and they can filter based on who their employees or who their drivers are. So like in this filter, it's just this. But when you go in to say the WSW or the settlement or what have you, the safety, they can go in and say, I just want to see the drivers that are assigned to me. So then that way they're not looking at other people's drivers. They don't have to sort through and find their drivers. They're only looking at theirs. It's a nice thing to have when you have multiple BCs, and that's why we added that in there. And the way that you get somebody to show up in this list, because as you can see, there is no add manager. A manager is someone who, under their permissions, is admin 1, admin 2, or admin 3. They have to have an admin level like this to get into the boss system in the first place. So one of these 3, if they're checked, they'll show up in that list. Okay. So like I said, you can do with this what you want. They don't have to be managers. If you've got office people that you only want to have them see certain people or want them to be able to filter, they can do that as well. So you can use that how you'd like. And employment status is a big deal too. So something we just recently changed, if you've got somebody set up as an employee, but you don't have them set up as a driver, they're not going to show up in the safety stuff. Drivers are the only ones that have to complete safety. We've had a lot of people that have reached out and said, hey, my office person keeps getting the safety lessons and they're messing up my safety numbers and blah, blah, blah. So we made it so that if that driver status is inactive, they don't show up on those lists anymore. So that way you're not seeing a skewed number for those office people who don't want to take the quizzes. And that's why there are two. You can have somebody that is an employee, but is not necessarily a driver. So that is why that does exist. Username, I do want to mention, this is an email address. It can't be something without an email. The reason being is we do send your drivers emails notifications to complete their safety and stuff like that. So it does have to be an email address, and it is case sensitive. So just like Andy was talking about before, if there's any capitalization in any of this, they're going to have to type it in there too. I do tell people to try to keep capitalizations out of this because it can kind of cause issues with the driver where they are putting it not putting a capitalization in there when there is one in here. There's actually a lot of people that have like capitalized this whole thing, and then the driver will reach out and say, hey, I can't get in. And I'm like, oh. I just change it to all lowercase, and then it's like, okay, thanks, I can get back in. So, and sometimes your phone defaults to, when you go to put your email address in, the capital letter is the first letter. I'm not sure why that is, but it is case sensitive, so just be careful there. And then their password, you can change it from here. The old way, you had to like unlock it to change it. Now you can just change it. So you can see it. You can back this out, change it and click save. And that's a great thing now too. A lot of drivers will reach out and say, hey, I don't remember what my password is. Can you reset it? And you can say, well, would you like to know what your password is? And you can get in here. Now, if you go in here and you see that it's a long computer looking generated one, that means they click the button that says, I don't remember my password. And in that case, I would just change it for them. A lot of times I just change it to password all lowercase, and then they can go into the driver app and change it back to whatever they would like. That just makes it a lot easier instead of having to ask them what they want their password to be over the phone. So just a couple of little tool tips from one of the people at eTruckBiz who answers a lot of questions from the drivers. It's easier to just set it to something and then let them go ahead and go back in and change it. Any questions about this general information area before we get down to the tabs down here? And if you have questions later, please don't hesitate to ask. The personal info is, none of it is required, but is all valuable information. Obviously, you're going to need to have a lot of this to do things like your payroll and taxes and things like that. So having a lot of this in here is very beneficial, especially if you need to order more uniforms and things like that. Having these in here as well, instead of having to ask everybody again, it all exists. So this is something that is nice to have. Like we talked about before, they're permissions. So we tried to put some information in here that tells you what each permission and admin level gets. Admin 1 is basically, for those of you who are AOs, that is basically you. They just can't cancel the account. They can get in and see everything you can, they just can't cancel the account. Admin 2, they can see everything except for the bottom line financials. So bookkeeping, your settlement statements, anything that has to do with financial information, they cannot see. A lot of people make their BCs at admin 2 because then they can't see like their settlement statements and things of that nature. But we do have a lot of people who want their BCs to see everything. So we've got a lot of admin 1s out there. Also admin 3, they can see all the information except for financial. They can't see bookkeeping, trip stuff, maintenance, all of that. So, and then we've also got an employee driver. Everyone is that. That is always going to be checked because if they're in your system, they're an employee. And then we've also got employee maintenance. I actually talked to somebody about this recently. This is someone who does maintenance on your trucks. Typically is who this person is. And what's really nice about having that admin level is if you've got a maintenance guy who is he's the only one that does maintenance on your trucks. you can give him access to your system, and he can go in here and he can put in the receipts and maintenance on every truck and all those things, so you don't have to. And then your memoirs are going to end up being done by the end of the month. So they can go ahead and do that. We did talk to a contractor a little bit ago about letting a maintenance guy get into the driver app, log in with that admin level, and put those maintenance records in through his phone, because he has it right there and he can just do it right away. So we are in the process of adding that to the driver app. Like I said before, we're open to suggestions. Our system was built off of your guys' additions and suggestions and stuff like that. So that feature will be coming shortly here in 2024. Compliance, this is their licenses and classifications. This is the area where you're going to put in like what license classification they have, their license number, what state it's issued, and these are where you're going to find all the expiration dates, okay? So this is when they start getting their notifications. They get safety notifications, but the reason that this username is also an email is because they also get notifications when these are about to expire. You get those same ones as well. So you get a notification that it's getting ready to expire, and so do they. We have a lot of drivers that will reach out and say, hey, I've updated my date, here's what it is, and we'll go ahead and update it for them. But they can also let you know, and this is where you would come in and edit it, so that they stop receiving those emails. But you've got your license, when it expires, medical certificate, MVR, driver certification of violations, and the annual review. So those are all of the options you have there to address. The safety setup is exactly what it sounds like. You've got these all default to this. So there's 4. You also can have people set up as qualified observers. Mainly, those are typically BCs, I'm sure. But these 3 get defaulted this way. If you hire somebody, say an office person, when you go to save them, you want to unclick all these if you don't want them getting them. The safety focus is that weekly safety lesson that they get that is your ongoing safety training with your indemnity through FedEx. So if they are a driver, you want to make sure that that is checked. The rest of these, though, are optional, although we suggest you use them, obviously. The safety track survey is they get that once a month, and it's a month after the fact. So they would have gotten one on the 1st of this year that asks them, hey, in December, did you have a valid driver's license? And did you have any violations? This does a great job of covering your butt a little bit when, hopefully never, but if a driver gets into an accident and they didn't have a valid driver's license, you can say, hey, they've been telling me that they did. And here are all the months that they told me they had no violations on their driver's license. A lot of us would hope that you would never need to use it, but I have heard people have used it before. So it is a great way of keeping track of that. And then this op focus lessons, these are very similar to your safety focus lessons, but these are mainly P&D. Line haul guys don't get these. They are more operational focused. So pick up a package with your legs, not your back. Do you need to get a signature for alcoholic beverages? Things like that. A lot of times also we'll write some up around peak time or around certain times of the year if they've got a special codes that the drivers need to know about, things of that nature. That happened a lot during COVID when they had all those scans, the different scan codes and stuff that they could use. That's where those would come from. So those are nice to have when something comes out that we have to, let the drivers know, especially code-wise. That was a really, really good way of making sure they saw that. But again, like I said, these 2 are optional, and this one is the safety indemnity, and that's if we are your safety vendor. Some of you might use somebody else as a safety vendor, so you can uncheck it. But ours are really easy to do, and once a week. So, and Ken can attest to this too, because I know, Ken, you're on here. One of the nice things about ours, because it is once a week, if they're missing 1 or 2 of those lessons and they get into an accident, FedEx is a little bit more lenient as opposed to the ones where it's once a month. you're running into the whole
Yeah, the
not
minute you
having
miss,
safety
the
been
minute you
looked
miss
at.
one,
Yeah.
if you are on a monthly vendor and you just miss one, you are out of compliance. So with us, a driver would have to miss 4 to be out of compliance. So uh, that, and they literally take 3 to 5 minutes compared to the monthly lessons that with other vendors want you to watch a movie for 15 to 20 minutes. The last thing your drivers want to do is watch a video for 15 to 20 minutes. So very simple
And
program.
I'm a little biased because I help write them, but they're very easy. They're very easy, less than 5 minutes. I can get them done in a couple minutes, but it gets the point across and it gets the information in front of them. So very easy program to use. Wages are exactly what they are called, wages. This is where you go set up. There's multiple ways in our system. I should say this before I get into the wages. There are multiple ways in our system to do the same thing. So while you can set the availability here for the scheduler, you can also do that in the scheduler. You don't always have to keep coming back here to make the edits here. Just like the scheduler, the wages, when you get into our gross pay calculator, you can adjust these wages in there as well. You don't have to always keep coming back to the driver area to do this. This is just really, what we did here was mainly when you're adding a new driver, everything you would need to be able to put into our system for a brand new driver is right here. You don't have to click around all over the place to get a new driver into our system. It's all in one place. Now, if you have to adjust a couple of people at once, yes, it's easier to come in here and do it. But if you're in the gross pay calculator and you're like, oh, I didn't make that driver active and I didn't put their hourly pay in or what have you, you can do that in the gross pay calculator. You don't have to keep coming back here. Usually the only reason a pay status would be inactive is if A, they're not an active driver or employee, or you aren't using our gross pay calculator or any of our pay tools. So this person is set to active, they're hourly for $15 an hour, and they have unpaid breaks. Very sleek, very simple. There are other ways of paying people. In here, you could do per day, and you would put in that day rate, salary, for people that you have that are on your payroll that are salary, you can put that in as well. You can do per stop or package, so you can put that in here as well. And then you can also have line haul, which every time I click on it, makes my brain hurt. So for all you who are line haul, there it is. It tells you all the different ways that you can pay a line haul driver here. This particular person is hourly, so we're going to leave it as that. And you can change it to paid or unpaid breaks. So that is there. Anytime you make a change in here, you want to make sure you're clicking save, so that way things get saved that you made changes to. And then files and signature is a great place. This is a lot of information right here. So you can add files in here. So yep.
Back on the payroll, the critical reason why you want to populate payroll rules is it's going to populate the gross pay calculator. It's going to populate the Optics app. It's going to populate your weekly business report for both line haul and P&D. So those are, let the system help you by doing those setup things with your payroll, because it's going to make the system a whole lot more useful for you with those rules in there. Okay, sorry about that, Mason.
No, you're fine. I should have said that. Just like the name on the WSW and the badge IDs are important, this right here, even if you're not using our gross pay calculator, is huge for the reporting side of our system too. So like Ken said, our Optics app, if you want to see whether or not a route is actually costing you any money, like costing you more than what you're sending out, or if you're bringing more in from that route than what you're paying your driver, having that pay in there is important, because if it's not in there, we don't know. So that is a big deal to put that in here, even if you're not using our gross pay calculator, which I suggest you try at least once, because it's pretty great. But the rest of the system does go off of this as their set wages. So when the reports and stuff like that. So Ken, you are correct. Thanks for bringing that up. I went right past it. Files and signature, you can add files and images right here. So what this does is it makes it so that you can put in things like a W-4. You can put in any type of those files that you would put into that driver file, say in a filing cabinet. It's a fancy digital filing cabinet. Also, for those of you who are BCs and AOs, this is where you can put your signature. This signature gets, if you upload one or you capture a new one, when you go to create your MMRs monthly, you have the option of choosing to put your signature on there. So for a lot of you who are able to digitally like submit your MMRs to your terminal management, it makes it very easy. You don't have to print them off, sign them, then scan them back in. You can put your signature in here, it'll sign it in the box for you, and good to go. Any questions about anything down here or up here in the general information area? I'm going to close out of that driver. The rest of this employee information here, there is a new export employees function. This is something I wanted to bring up that is a new feature that we created. When you click it, there are some really cool things in here that have been added. I know it's exporting employees might not be the coolest thing ever, but what's really interesting about what we did here is you can choose from active or inactive or all. So you can, if you're wanting to, pull out active or inactive drivers, you can. But what's really cool about this, you can choose what information you actually want to pull out. So if you're creating a report that you don't want to include the pant size, shirt size, all of the stuff that would be down in the personal information area, you can pull their pay status, pay rate, all of these things. If you don't want to include these, you don't have to. It defaults to these. But what's also really cool, so let's say we want to take these off. You can put this information in there and say you're pulling this out for your BCs. You can pull this pay rate up here and do that. So this is adjusting your columns on that Excel file when you pull it out. So if you want it to be first name, username, mobile phone from left to right, but say you want their pay rate right here in their username, you can do that, and it'll move those columns around, so it's adjustable. So what's really nice about this is if you're trying to pull a report that you're sending off to somebody or you're using it for something specific, you can do that. You don't have to pull it out and then make those adjustments on that Excel file externally. So that's something that we have added recently. And anytime you click an export button, it's going to automatically download that report, and then you'll want to open it up on your computer. It used to open up in a new tab. That became kind of an issue because a lot of people's computers have pop-up blockers on, and that became a discussion for a while. But now it goes ahead and downloads, and you'll go and look in your downloaded files, and that's where it'll be. And again, for those of you who have not been here on our workshops, anytime you see this little eye indicator icon, that is a button to let you see information about that tool. So in this case, it's the export employees function, so it tells you everything that I just told you. But it's all over the system, and there's a lot of good information under there, especially when you get into the financial stuff. There's a lot of good information under those help icons. I believe that is all I had scheduled for today. So if anybody has any questions about updating your drivers, one of the other things I should say is if you need to add somebody, little black plus button, everything that I just showed you when I clicked on somebody shows up here. And this is where you would enter everything in and fill everything out. And that is how you would do that. Does anybody have any questions whatsoever about the employee management area, other parts of the system? I know we brought up other tools that exist. We brought up the gross pay calculator. We brought up some of the MMRs and truck stuff. So any question is good. No question is too big or too small. And like I said before, you can also unmute yourself if you need to and ask the question like Andy did earlier. So if you have any questions at all, don't feel like you have to put it in the chat or the Q&A unless you want to. We can do that as well.
All right, quiet group. We just
It is
hopefully
very
this
quiet
is
group
helpful
today,
to you.
except for Andy, which we like.
Exactly. But it's important because it's going to get the reports right for the WSW activity, the WSW driver reports. And like I said, it can help you automate your payroll. Basically, it's there to help you. So getting the information in there right allows you to get the information out of the system the correct way. So.
Correct. Yeah, see, if you see all these names, some of them are first name, last name. Some of them are last name, first name, middle initial. It just really depends on how it comes through on that WSW, like Andy and I were talking about earlier. But this is all possible because those names on the WSW are put in correctly. And then also when you go into the gross pay calculator, it was one of the other ones here. When you go into the gross pay calculator, this will also help you populate things in here as well, because like I said, the drivers all exist in here. So you're going to be able to get these reports to actually show up because all of the employees are actually in here correctly. So that is a big deal to have everybody in there the way they're supposed to be. All right, well, if we don't have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions at all. Like I said, none are too big, too small. That's my contact information, and next week we will see you here for the setting your driver's e-route availability. If I don't talk to you before next week, have a great rest of your week and a great weekend. Everybody have a great day.
Bye-bye.